Greetings, fellow sufferers. It is the second Bricks from Bed live stream. My name's Stephanie Smith. I am running for Congress in Illinois' 13th district. I had some questions this week. The first one is, have you seen Dean Cain's film Airplane vs. Volcano? I have not, but I did watch the trailer and I'm definitely intrigued. It looks fantastic. Impressive CGI. Dean Cain looks like he's really, I think he could be an action star. I do. Another question that I got this week. What are your thoughts on the Taft-Hartley Act, and would I be supportive of its repeal? That is a really good question. So the Taft-Hartley Act came about post-World War II. I think it was 1947-ish. Basically, we had a really strong working class, lots of unions. There had been a lot of strikes, and that made wealthy people really, really mad. And so they created the Taft-Hartley Act to undermine worker rights, in my opinion. This allowed for the creation of right to work laws. It squashed lots of kinds of strikes, like wildcat strikes, solidarity strikes. And so honestly, I am for policy that strengthens worker rights, and I would be supportive of repealing the Taft-Hartley Act. I think that we desperately need legislation that actually bolsters the working class, and anybody who wants to be part of a union should be able to be part of a union. I haven't talked too much about this aspect of my life, but I was a dancer at multiple strip clubs in my late teens and early 20s, and I was hired as an independent contractor. However, I wasn't allowed a lot of the rights that an independent contractor would have. I had to work a particular schedule. I was charged a house fee to go to work. So basically, if you're not familiar with how clubs work, one of the clubs that I worked at, and this was pretty standard, I would have to pay anywhere from $50 to $75 per shift to work. I would be forced to sell merchandise. I would have to pay for the merchandise out of my own pocket and sell it. If I was sick, I wasn't allowed to call off shifts. I wasn't allowed a day off. Didn't have any benefit or health insurance. Missing shifts, even if you have sickness, even if you had a doctor's note. One time I was charged $300 for missing a shift. These sort of exploitative practices they're really, really disheartening. And I'm really, really glad that there's actually a movement happening amongst many dancers to unionize clubs. But that's just one example of how independent contractor status can be used to undermine employee rights. It's very, very hard as well to actually unionize places like strip clubs or food service, places where staff has a lot of turnover, right? The idea is that, these are jobs where we can easily replace people, and so they just don't give people the time of day or benefits or respect or wages like they deserve. And so I'm really for strengthening unions, especially in terms of adult entertainment industry, the retail industry, food service. Our most vulnerable workers are the people who are really, really living paycheck to paycheck and having to supplement their lives with government assistance. They don't have access to unions. And I support anything that would make that happen, honestly. We deserve respect. We deserve rights. We deserve fair wages. We deserve to be making a living when we do good work. Customer service work is incredibly difficult, especially when you're in a tip-based position where your income is based almost entirely on your repertoire with customers. And these businesses only survive and exist because of charming staff, right? Like, that's why people come to restaurants. Like, your food can be great, but if the service sucks, nobody's going to go there. So we should definitely be paying restaurant employees living wages. The wage that servers make right now, I think the minimum wage in Illinois is $4.95 an hour, which is outrageously low. When I started waiting tables, I was 16 and the wage was $3.20 an hour. So you can tell that has not gone up that much in 20 years, which is absolutely ludicrous. And this is also another problem because as other people struggle with wages in other sectors, they spend less money going out to eat. They spend less money tipping. There's this idea that tipping is like extra, that you're supposed to like tip well for really good service. But the thing is, they pay us our wages so low that tips aren't actually extra. You're just supplementing our employment, our wages, because the owners aren't paying it. I do have another story about my time working at a club in terms of rights being violated. Is really, really graphic, so I'm not sure that this is necessarily the best time or place to bring it up. I might actually save that to write it out. But it involves deja vu. It involves exploitation by management. And it also involves exploitation at the hands of law enforcement. Happened in Springfield, Illinois. It's a really terrible story. But it's really, really important because I think stuff like that still happens and nobody knows. People don't listen to these workers, and that's really upsetting. So back to the question. Yes, I would support the repeal of the TaftHartley Act. Next question. With over 3,000 people dying every year due to lack of access to health care, not insurance, what is your answer to Republicans who are determined to undermine the ACA and to corporate-owned Democrats who want nothing but to maintain the status quo? My initial response is this. We're dying. We're dying. Like, I can't make it any more clear. It's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable to allow poor people to die when we have care available and our tax dollars fund these sort of research and medical advances that other people get to take advantage of, and we can't. That's absolutely outrageous. I've shared before that I've lost somebody very close to me, my mother, due to lack of health care and insurance because she was poor. I spoke at the Macon County Democrats meeting, just kind of introducing myself. I talked about Medicare for all. I support single payer healthcare. I don't support a public option because that undermines all of it. And I explained why it was important, even in the context of where I was at. I mean, the Decatur Federation of Teaching Assistants had been striking, and when they came back to work, they found out their health insurance had been taken away. Somebody's chemotherapy got interrupted. Somebody's chemotherapy got interrupted because they took their health insurance, right? Like, that's outrageous. So I was talking about all of that and why this is such a really big, important issue, especially in our district where we are very, very poor and we have low wages, high rent burden. And then a representative from the other candidate spoke after me and said, quote, "We fight for the middle class. We don't need purity in policy." And I bring that up now because I noticed the purity bit came up in the debates this past week with Mayor Pete. I've never been called pure in my life until that meeting at the Macon County Democrats, which is pretty ironic, very funny. But the thing is, you're talking about people's lives, life or death issues. You are telling me when you say you fight for the working class and that everybody having health care is some sort of too pure ideal, like what you're saying is that you're advocating for the death of working people. That's what you're doing, right? You're not advocating for the ACA. You're advocating for my demise, right? And the demise of people like me. I'm not here for it. I don't entertain it. It's bullshit. I'm not here for eugenics. I'm not here for genocide. And I'm not here to support policy that would put people like me in the ground. So yeah, that's what I would say to them. You're merchants of death, and I'm over it. And I think most of us are. And single payer is the way forward. Next question. Who is your favorite DSA and why is it Central Illinois DSA? Okay, first of all, I actually adore all of the DSAs in our district. They've all been incredible and kind, and every time I am around these people, I feel heard and seen and accepted, and I feel like we're working on really important issues together. But Central Illinois DSA is very, very special to me because that was actually the first group of people that I really spoke to after deciding to campaign. I went to Decatur and I was so nervous. I had no idea what I was doing because I'm not a person of political ambition, right? Like I was like trying to write a speech and there's a video of it. It's really bad because I was like, it has to be strong, you know, they gotta be intense, gotta say everything. I didn't really know how to talk publicly at that point. So I was there with like my iPad reading in this outdoor patio and going through my whole spiel, and I was very, very nervous because I wanted to be very, very upfront about my history because I was really, really concerned that it would make people uneasy, and I wanted people to be able to say like, no, we're not ready for somebody like you yet, right? Like full disclosure, lots of transparency, like this is who I am and what I'm about. So I was incredibly nervous and I did just that, and I spoke about it all, including the underage sex work and my background coming from a trailer park. And I remember distinctly this woman, she's an older woman, her name's Nancy, I love her. She slammed both fists on the table as soon as I got done talking and said, "I love you." And I am like, I don't even know how to explain the sense of like relief and warmth that just kind of washed over me all at once. I was not expecting that kind of support. I was really, really expecting people to ask a lot of kind of prodding questions. I was prepared for that and accepting of that, but then just to finish speaking and to be met with that sort of love, that is like a top 10 moment in my entire life. I'm not even kidding. As somebody who's gone through the sort of things that I've gone through, when you can just say who you are openly, honestly, and bluntly like that, and then somebody's immediate reaction is to welcome you with open arms, like you're gonna feel like you're at home, you know. And So after the speech, I started hanging out and talking to everybody there, and it was so relaxed, and people were having fun. You know, we were laughing, we were talking. It was very, very natural. It was not at all like I thought it was going to be, and honestly, in that moment, like, I absolutely fell in love with Decatur and the people of Decatur. Like, just strong working class values there. Absolutely. You know, like, coming from a small town, I've been in lots of places in central Illinois. I've lived in Bloomington Normal, I've lived in Peoria, I've lived in East Peoria, I've lived in Champaign-Urbana. I'm from Leroy. So I've been around here for the most part for my whole life. And, you know, the people that I met in Decatur just really, really felt a lot like the people that I grew up with. There's something a little bit grittier, a little bit, I don't know, there's charm there. There's so much charm in Decatur. So that's why it's my favorite DSA. But I love all the DSAs. I wanted to talk about holidays a little bit. Holidays are pretty tough for a lot of people, for a lot of reasons. A lot of people don't have places that they can go home to. A lot of families are torn apart right now, and that's really upsetting. So this is a really, really important year to be reaching out and checking in on people. This is a really, really dark time. It's really, really cold. It's really difficult to make connections right now and trust people. Everything feels very divisive. And so if you could all do me a favor and kind of open up your hearts to each other, and just reach out to each other, even if it's just a message saying, hey, how are you doing? Can I get anything for you? Or, you know, just sometimes it makes all the difference in the world to just do a video chat with somebody. Like, I've had holidays where I have played video games and had my tablet set up so that I could video chat with somebody, and they play video games at their house while I play video games at mine. And, you know, sometimes that's good enough. So it doesn't have to be like a big fancy dinner or a big celebration. Like, just let people know that you're there, right? That you're there for them. You're showing up for each other. I do have one thing about the holidays that has always really, really upset me, and I want to talk about that for a second. It's about Santa Claus. And it's true, I'm kind of a curmudgeon, but not without reason. I saw this happen a lot growing up in the trailer park. We tell kids, like, Santa gives presents to the good kids, you know, like either you're naughty or you're nice, right? So kids get presents if they're good. What if they're poor? What if they're poor and they don't get presents because they're poor, right? Then they start to internalize that as them being bad, right? So if you could all do me a favor this Christmas and not bribe your children to behave with toys, and instead just like give them gifts because you're celebrating abundance together, and maybe explain it that way, that might help. But also talk about how we shouldn't be bragging about these sort of things when we go to school, right? Like, it's really, really hard when you maybe only got like a couple of things for Christmas and it was socks and underwear because you needed them. And then you get to school and somebody's talking about their brand new Nintendo. That can really, really mess up with your sense of self and your sense of belonging, right? And it's not just other kids feeling like they're bad because they're they're poor and they didn't get stuff. It's also kids thinking that they're better than those kids because they got stuff, right? Like that's another component. If you're buying your kid a bunch of stuff, that's great. I'm glad that you can do that. But please don't let them believe that they deserve stuff. Like, just don't tie it that way, right? Like, make it a real gift, right? Celebrate abundance together, and don't tie it to like moral or value. That's rough. That's really, really rough. One other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm really excited. We're getting a couple more people on the staff. Woohoo! Yes. And we are still doing issues-based canvassing, which is really, really important. And I think there needs to be a conversation about like, what is issues-based canvassing? And you can go to the website, stephanie2020.com, and click Get Involved if you want to sign up to join our canvasses. But I actually have Alan here to talk about what issues-based canvassing actually means. Because it's not just going to doors and saying, what issues do you care about? That is not issues-based canvassing. That's just going to a door and asking a question. So, can you clarify this for us? You can come on over.
Yeah. So, as part of Stephanie's campaign, we do several different kinds of issues-based canvasses. This is to make sure that regardless of whether or not we win, which I insist we will, but Stephanie
I'm humble.
Yeah. We still make progress on all these different long-term issues because it's not just the federal legislature. 1 out of 435 people will not change the world, but it will make a difference here if we tie that labor into getting that person elected into making sure that we have a ton of signatures for Medicare for All, a ton of signatures for lifting the ban on rent control, a ton of signatures for banning fracking, right? So how our canvases work is we knock on a low-income person's door. We actually can access that data for free and figure out where are the low-income neighborhoods. We go and we knock on their door. Oftentimes it will be a mother carrying a baby or a grandmother with a cane. These people have hard lives, and the last thing they want to hear is, hi, I'm here to talk about a candidate that doesn't care about you, that you have no way of holding accountable, and here's a bunch of half-baked promises. No, we're not going to do that. We start with, your rent is too high. Your medical expenses are too much. You deserve clean water. Would you like to sign this petition to make sure that we can keep it that way, or make sure that we can get things to be that way? Great. Thank you so much. Here's a candidate who's endorsed that petition. Here are the organizations that have endorsed her. That's what issues-based canvassing is. And anybody who tries to replicate that kind of canvassing, if they try to sneak in a candidate who's not actually endorsed that, people Google it, they'll find out that you lied. So good luck to that person. So the main thing is that anybody who's tied to issues-based canvassing has to have spoken publicly about it. Stephanie's endorsed the fracking ban. Stephanie's endorsed lifting the ban on rent control. Stephanie's endorsed single-payer healthcare. We canvass on those. That's pretty much it.
It is. It's also a really, really good opportunity to educate people as well, because especially if you're canvassing in lower income neighborhoods, we canvass in a lot of neighborhoods that aren't often hit by canvassers. Frequently people, this is a thing that I learned, because I'm not into politics in terms of like having political ambition. This is my first time being a part of a campaign, is that usually people just buy access to like a database of like registered voters within their party, and then they just go knock on those doors. We didn't do that. We focused on the populations that we want to serve and that we want to represent. And a lot of the people that we talk to haven't ever had people come to their doors before. So it's a really, really good opportunity for education, not just on the issues, because a lot of people have heard about the issues or might know about them, and they can ask questions and we can answer those, and that's great. But also, it gives them a chance to get connected with their local civic community, right? So we also ask people if they want to join our issues-based canvases. And one of the things that we're really big on is that if you want to join our canvas and only do the issues and not actually ask about like candidates and promote me, I'm actually fine with that. That's okay too. Like these are issues that I want people to be discussing and be involved in. And if electoralism makes you uncomfortable, like I'm not going to push you to do that. And I think that it's really, really important that we get people involved in that sort of a way that that really we don't just go through the list of the people who have been in the game forever, right? Like we really, really need to be working on outreach. The people who need us the most are the people that haven't been spoken to in a very, very long time. And canvassing actually represents an opportunity to give people a little bit of a voice, to let them know that somebody's out there working on the issues that actually impact their lives. So I'm a big, big, big fan of this. And that's actually how I kind of got to know Alan et al. Is he kept pestering me to go on issues-based canvases. And so, who knows? You could go on an issues-based canvas and then find yourself running for Congress. It's been known to happen.
Yep.
I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, yeah. When it comes to who we are door knocking, the reason why the focus also needs to be on low-income households is because we know wealthier people consume the media recreationally. We know wealthier people engage in politics recreationally when these are dire issues affecting people in a substantive way that no one's talking about. So through actually canvassing in low-income neighborhoods, in disaffected neighborhoods, and marginalized neighborhoods, we're actually going to be increasing voter turnout. And given how low the historic decade-high turnout in the primary for 2018 was, the establishment Democrats should be very frightened that we are turning out the vote. But anybody who's truly committed to flipping Rodney Davis's seat, they should be all for this. So let's make it happen.
Absolutely. Let's see. Do we have anything else to touch on? Is there any other big news happening? I went through my questions.
No, but if anybody else does, you can throw a brick from bed. We've got...
Oh, right. Yeah, I should promote that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you would like to submit a question to Bricks from Bed, there is a tab for that on the website. And so far, we have it set up. You can submit anonymously if you would like. If people get too weird with it, I might turn off that feature, but I'd like to keep it on. So Stephanie2020.com, there's a tab, Bricks from Bed, and you can submit a question there. And I'm going to be doing this every Sunday at 6 o'clock. The hope is that maybe occasionally we'll have guests on. This week it's Alan because he was already at my house. So like if you're just hanging out here, be warned, I might put you on camera. But yes, I have a few people that I have in mind for coming on to talk about some issues, especially within our local community. And yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. It was good to see you. I have a list of some people watching. Hello, I love you. Enjoy your week. I hope that everybody gets a reasonable amount of rest and relaxation. I know that this is a really, really busy time for everybody. So thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye.